Al Gore's back in the news.
Boy, I'll say.
And I find him so distasteful. What's the best way to set this up, Chris?
He was on Meet the Press on Sunday.
All right, and he's comparing.
Well, you can just say it like this.
Yes.
He's trying to continue to raise awareness on, of course, climate change and the need and the urgency to act now.
Yeah, we have to do something now. Right. We don't know what,
right,
but something now. Here it is.
You know, the climate deniers are really in some ways similar to all of those almost 400 law enforcement officers in Uvalde, Texas, who were waiting outside an unlocked door while the children were being massacred. They heard the screams, they heard the gunshots, and nobody stepped forward. And God bless those families who've suffered so much. And law enforcement officials tell us that's not typical of what law enforcement usually does. And confronted with this global emergency, what we're doing with our inaction and failing to walk through the door and stop the killing is not typical of what we are capable of as human beings. We do have the solutions, and I think these extreme events that are getting steadily worse and more severe are really beginning to change minds. We have to have unity as a nation to come together and stop making this a political football. It shouldn't be a partisan issue.
That's offensive, Joe.
That's
the first word that's the exact first word I use.
I don't offend easy, but I got to feel for the families there. That's damn chucklehead spouting this BS while they're
they're grieving.
I'm just so sorry for those families.
Plus, most importantly, it's not. First of all, you would never compare anything to the tragic shooting of children.
Oh,
and nothing. And secondly, it's not remotely analogous. You can see the school. You can see the hallway. You can see the door you could have opened. You could hear the children. You could have touched them. None of that is true as it applies to nature. None of that is true as it applies to temperature and wind and rain and snow and hurricanes. None of that is true. Gore is comparing something completely unknown and making it analogous to something that is completely known, provable, and measurable. He is disingenuous. He is wrong. He's so overtaken by the belief that he is still a figurehead in this movement that he would even disrespect the lives of these children. And he's despicable. And I can't...
Insulting is the absolute perfect word.
I can't emphasize enough how sordid he is. That takes a real sordid character to lump his crusade into anything he can reach out and find in the news. And in this case, he reached out and found the inactivity by law enforcement. The same, and he even said we can stop the killing and the screaming, as though people are dying and screaming because of climate change, which is not true.
Which is not true.
Yep. It's not true.
Well,
it's horrible. He's horrible. He's a horrible human being.
He's being a shill for his own company. He's profiting from global warming. May 18th, 2022. Generation Investment Management, the $36 billion investment firm co-founded by Al Gore, launched a new fund targeting companies that contribute to lower emissions, increased financial inclusion, and more accessible health care.
Mm-hmm.
His business is global warming.
And where's that money coming from, Joe?
Climate change.
Where's all that money coming from?
The new fund will target three key areas: planetary health, which focuses on a company's ability to deliver net zero carbon solutions in mobility, agriculture, energy, and enterprise by cutting waste. And people health is the other one, and some other crock of BS. My God.
And they probably have another source of income, I would guess.
There is not a human activity on Earth that can be compared to the vagaries of nature. It's that simple. We can't make rain. We can't make wind. We can't make snow. We can't touch the climate. We can't know it. We can't measure it. Well, you can measure the temperature or whatever. We can't do anything. It's unknowable. It's nature. It's bigger than man. And here this moron, this despicable fraud, he likens the inactivity of the cops to the inactivity of the human race when it comes to dealing with climate change. He couldn't be more wrong. There's nothing analogous about it. He just couldn't be more wrong, and he couldn't be more offensive. It's astonishing to me, the theological fervor that the likes of this fraud have for this movement, when basically it's just something that's A, enriched him, and B, has replaced any semblance of faith that he might have had or once had. This has become a theological movement for these frauds. And it's because they've abandoned any other form of theological belief. And if you don't believe in a higher being or a higher power, however you want to define it, you'll believe in anything. So this moron has chosen to believe this.
Do you think people are believing him?
No, look at the polling in America.
So they know he's a shifty carpetbagger selling cure-all medicine out of the back of a covered wagon. Because that's what he is.
I hope they realize that.
The other frightening aspect of this is when I was grabbing this sound today, I pulled it from a clip that was surfacing on social media. The comments below it are just as frightening, because there are a number of people that unfortunately do buy this garbage.
Carbon,
Joe.
Go
Joe,
ahead,
I was going
somebody.
to say, I looked this up yesterday when you said it. Polling actually 65% to 70% think something should be done about global warming in all the polls I could find.
Well, what's the
But
poll we had
But they don't
2 weeks
say
ago?
what.
That was a Star
don't know.
Tribune poll in relation to something Governor Walz was about to enact, correct?
I think people are more worried that the same stuff they paid for last year now
Yep.
costs them $450 more.
Well, all the
Yeah.
polls I'm talking about say the same thing, that they're more worried about inflation, et cetera,
Yeah.
getting the country back together. So climate change is always 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th on the list. But they all say, yes, something should be done. So I don't know what that means.
this whole notion of carbon credits, a carbon credit is a placebo. It doesn't do anything. It just makes you feel better for being an S-heel.
It's a plenary indulgence.
Yeah,
Yep,
thank you.
Exactly.
Let me
Yeah,
pay you now for my sins.
Yeah.
Well,
That'll
it means
make me
nothing.
feel better.
It means nothing.
Yeah. Yep.
It means nothing. This movement has nothing to do with the environment. I've tried to tell, I'm preaching to the choir. I've said it repeatedly for going on 15 years now. This has nothing to do with the environment. Nothing. This has to do with a radical transformation of the Western society.
Joe, the rate and the tempo that it comes down the hill at you. I mean, it's mentioned right away, top of the fold. You call it the play headline, severe drought threatens state again. 7th paragraph in, you go to the jump, it's mentioned again. Then you go to A4, wildfires rampaging through Alaska, areas that are normally wet burning because of global warming. Then they talk about Portugal, Spain, France, England, Germany. I mean, it just comes at you every day from every angle.
Yep.
You can't fault the dum-dums of the world
For falling for it.
for just falling in with it because everybody else is saying it and doing it.
That your carbon, it's the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win this battle. I negotiated the Paris Accords for the United States. I've been involved in this fight for years. I negotiated with President Xi to bring President Xi to the table
How'd
so
that
we
work
could
out
get
for you?
Paris. And I believe the time it takes me to get somewhere, I can't sail across the ocean. I have to fly to meet with people and get things done. But what I'm
He's-
doing,
All he's doing is justifying his paycheck, his existence. He's pleading for his job in that sound clip.
The American
that
public
bite.
has yet to know just how much money he's costing us and how many people he has working for him. They've failed to release that information.
It doesn't matter because he's buying placebos to
Kenny
make
just-
himself feel better.
Kenny just mentioned something, and I'm remembering the letter you read on the show. I believe it was last week, from a St. Paul teacher that is no longer in the St. Paul education system. Remember that one? I want to go to college. And basically, her paragraph was, we've screwed this all up. And I'm thinking, how many
Ocean
other
hot
kids?
now.
How many other kids are falling in lockstep with her line
Many.
of thinking? Because
Many.
all that's
beavers.
being perpetuated here is fear.
Right.
And fear is an extremely powerful device that's being used.
And they come home and they give it to their parents, and even though their parents are well educated and know all about it, according to their child, the parent is wrong because this is what we were taught in school.
I'd like to let this go and never talk about it again, but I can't.
What's going to happen here is a non-GLer is going to tune in here eventually, and we're going to be called what Al Gore just called us, climate deniers. We are not under any circumstances denying the
None
fact.
of us have ever denied it.
Because the climate has changed year by year since the beginning of the planet.
You're the flashlight king.
Oh, my
You're
God.
the fireworks commissioner. Aren't you also the grand poobah of the deniers?
I just read something this morning about a coal vein that started in the eastern part of the United States millions of years before the dinosaurs because there was no oxygen. Oh my God. It's been changing since before the dinosaurs.
Europe and North America used to be one continent.
Boom. Split up.
Many
Went their
changes.
separate ways.
Many changes have occurred.
You know what happened? They didn't have electric cars. That's why they split in half.
You can't let this go, though. If you let this go, you're acquiescing to the mystery.
And they win. Yep.
Because the mystery is riding on this. If you had to point to one thing that the mystery is betting on, the mystery, again, being the attempt to bring about a country that we don't know and don't recognize.
Which is happening.
The one thing they're riding on is this, because there's no surer way to bring about a complete change in Western society and capitalism and freedom than reining in the behavior of free people in the name of saving the planet. The planet's going to do just fine without us. Just fine.
And I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a gubernatorial race going on here in the state of Minnesota. That's essentially all that the Walz and Flanagan team tweet about. It's that and abortion rights.
What, the planet?
It's climate stuff, and it's also abortion rights. They don't attack any of the other real issues that are plaguing this state right now.
No, are you telling me they didn't talk about the ex-police chief's son that got the S kicked out of him last weekend down in front of the 90s?
Sure
saw
didn't.
that,
Sure
yeah.
didn't, Ken.
Huh, didn't bring that one up, huh?
Nope.
When they tell us something must be done now, that's a euphemism because there's nothing that can be done. The only thing that can be done is expand the government.
Yeah, vote for me. And all.
The only thing that can be done is add new layers of bureaucracy. The only thing that can be done is adding more and more layers of bureaucracy that are going to tell you how to behave. There is nothing else that can be done. That's why Gore, in his pathetic analogy of Uvalde, is so off the mark, because Uvalde's all provable. Uvalde's all touchable. Uvalde's all knowable. Uvalde's all measurable. Uvalde, unfortunately, we know the outcome. Everything about Uvalde we know and can know and did know from minute one. There is nothing that Gore says that can be known about the climate. Nothing.
But there are people that think that the school massacre of these poor children is the same thing as the climate killing. I can't believe that someone can actually make that leap. Because Gore doesn't really believe it.
Al Gore did.
But again, do you really think he believes that? Because I don't. I think he's just spewing nonsense for the sake of spewing
How
nonsense.
can he be so out of touch to say something so incredible?
Because he's lived
lining
his life on the
pockets.
third rail.
And he's lining his pockets along the way doing it.
He has nothing to do with us. We're just fools that don't behave the way he wants us to. He has nothing to do with us. He's a third railer. Has been all his life. His father was. It runs in the family. It's truly an amazing situation.
It's like he's living in Peter the Great's court. You know what I mean? He's free from the daily travails of life, protected, while the rest of the country suffers.
You know, the world